center line. We take our level, it should be the center line on the whole fucking door, but we're just not quite sure, so we're gonna do this instead. So we put our level straight up and down, and then we bring it over to 1 5/8 of an inch. Make sure it's still straight up and down. At 1 5/8, there we go. Looking good. We take our pencil and we make a little mark up here where no one will see it. And that establishes the center line of the door. Because we want it to line up on the center post. We're not necessarily going to go off the side of the side there. That should have been measured by the guy that measured this stuff. Then we come up here and we realize you really can't see anything because there's tremendous shadows and not very good light. But there it is. Now, what we're going to do, just a quadruple check, is we measure out to the edge of that. 83.5 inches. And then go to this side over here, and we measure out to here. 82 3/4. Perfect. But what's more important is that this line is established off of this line, because we want the gaps to line up. Now we take our bracket. This is a right side bracket. This is a left side bracket. This is a left side bracket. We take our height, which is 102 inches. So that's just up to the top here. First thing we want to do is figure out where we want the roll. That's what we got to do first. So, I'm not so good at math, but I am good at seeing things. So I take the shade and I hold it up and I go, you know, looks pretty good right about there. How about we center it up right on this beam here? I like that. So, you can even take your bracket, slide it on a little bit like so, go over here, like there, put it in between there, take your trusty pencil, make a little mark on the top of the bracket. Lucky for us, they put a shelf right here. So we can put our shade right there. Now, we find our line that I can barely see and line up the edge of the bracket.
Looks good to me.
With the line, raise it up to our height, double check, because why not? 1 1/4 inches. I was 1/8 of an inch off. Man, you don't want that. Nope. Line it up with the center line there. Take your awl to make a hole and take a little spot, a little indentation, use your hand, realize you're going into drywall. Pray to God that there's wood behind here. Not sprinkler lines or anything else.
That was for his brother, Derek. An unfortunate situation where Derek drilled into a sprinkler. Was not good.
Realize you have the wrong tip on your drill. That always happens. Hunt around for the correct one. Most of your time spent as an installer is looking for drill bits. Yeah, this is a lot. Then you realize that you put it in a different pouch. Hey, looky there. Okay.
There he goes.
Back in the little holes you made. We got wood.
That's what she said.
Could be one of those videos, huh?
I think
Don't
you're
say that's what she said. So, right side bracket, take your left side bracket and line her perfectly up with the right side bracket. Make sure the brackets are up tight against each other and they're the same height. And then
Oh wait, there's more.
the other thing you're going to spend most of your life doing as an installer is climbing up a ladder. So, now we're going to take this side of the shade here and put it into
Oh, I think I
the
know
right
what's gonna
bracket. But the most important thing is to not push it until it clicks, because it's a pain in the butt to remove if you do that. And then we're going to take the left side bracket, put it in here like this. Take your level, put it on top of the roll,
Whoops, sorry.
bring it down until she is perfectly leveled up. Again, with the pencil, make a little mark on the top of the bracket, make a little mark on the side of the bracket. Only put your pencil mark through, you can cover it up.
Oh, I can see it.
Customers don't like it when you leave pencil marks all over their walls. So, line it up with that. Use your awl to start the hole. When you're starting off, you should use the awl for both of the holes. When you've done it 80 million times, you don't have to use the awl for every hole. You can instead do that. Now we're over on our pencil mark just a hair. Go. Now if I did this right, it should fit. So this side goes in first. These shades have an upper limit. I tend to always go the wrong way first. So you want to make sure that there's a little thing in here that you twist to make sure that it's tight. And that establishes the upper limit on the shade. Line this one up over here. Oh, like a glove. Take off your little things. Oh, look at that. And the reverse roll sits just over the casing. It's a thing of beauty. This is an internal rechargeable battery shade, so it requires waking it up, which means you gotta press the little button 3 times. It's easier when you can see it. 1, 2, 3, 4.
There it goes.
When it moved, And now we press the button again. And down goes the shade. Now the shade may roll out long, but we do the adjustments on that after we set everything up. So it might go down and hit the floor and look a little long, and that is not unusual. Sometimes they're just about perfect, like that. Get rid of this little stuff here, whatever that is. So now we already put up our left bracket. So what we're going to do, and it's much easier when you're working from the left to the right, but when you're doing a door, you always start on the center. So this one gets to be a little bit of a hassle, that one's a little bit of a hassle, this one's easier, because we're working from left to right. You can put this in here and it just hangs easy. This one's a little bit of a trickier bracket. So you slide that one in place. Most important thing when doing these doors is making sure your blinds are level. And they need to be level, or what happens is the gaps coming down here are going to either be wider at the bottom or tighter at the bottom if the shades are not perfectly level. So, even if the window's not level, you really need to make the shades level, or they will not look as good. So, pencil mark again on the top of the bracket and the side of the bracket. Put your bracket up. A little advanced technique. This is without using the awl. Again, when you've done enough of them, you know where to put your fingers. This is my favorite hex head bit. A little slippy, but it'll work. Being as there's not a hardware store nearby. That bracket's in. Again, we want to check the upper limit. And that's this guy here. So we turn this until it stops. So this turns inside here. If you don't turn it till it stops, the shade will flip over the top, because when you initially set up the shade, the first thing it's going to do is raise all the way up till it hits the hard upper limit. So you want to set it so that that hard upper limit is set. If this, and these can come unscrewed in shipping. So if it's loosened up like that, you'll set your shade, you'll press it, and then it'll flip all the way over the top, and you'll go, all right, you get to take that down and reset that. So set that till it's tight. Flip it back over. Adjust your shade so that you know that that's as high as it's going to raise. You don't, so you can see here that it stops. Now you can also take it out, position this down a little bit, and set it back in, and then it'll stop there. You don't want it to flip over the top. That's not a good thing, because if it ever loses its memory, it's going to do that, and you're going to come back and your shade's going to be all wonky. So you adjust that in there, it slips right in, clicks in place. You take these off, they say do not remove until the shade is installed. It's very important to read all the notes that the manufacturers put on the shades. There's a reason they put them there. 2, 3. Now we've woken up the internal rechargeable battery. You see a little blue light that goes on there. And then we press this one more time, and that sends the shade down. Internal rechargeable battery shades are very quiet, which is nice. You can go ahead and not hear the motor because it's quiet. So this one may roll down a little bit further. It may stay up a little bit higher. Again, once we program them, we'll set all of the lower limits on everything, and we'll reset all of the upper limits so they all stop at the same position up and all at the same position down. So we repeat the process again because we're working left to right. Always watch out for little ugly stickers. Don't ever leave those on jobs. It's just completely unprofessional. So now, getting a little ahead of myself here, gotta put the bracket up. So we put the left bracket up. Again, left bracket, you're simply lining up perfectly with the right bracket. So these, you get them, and perfect is what we're shooting for here. It's not difficult to get them perfectly lined up, so don't be lazy. Again, I recommend an awl if you're starting out because you have a hole to go off of. Alright. I really need my other headset. This one is my backup. Alright, well, let's suffer through. It's not hurting anything. It's not gonna put those down there for now. It just makes a lot of noise. Lined up. We take this bracket. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this bracket, yeah, you're not going to see it from the minute. So this bracket goes in here like so. And I can't really see what I'm doing, so okay, so it lines up like that. Slides in. If you push it all the way in, it clicks, and then it's a pain in the butt to unlock. So leave it like that, it won't come out. Again, now this one, they sent this little rubber guy here. This prevents your upper limit from unspooling. So this one should be set. And it's not. But that's the reason for that. So again, you can put it in the bracket, pull it up here, it's hitting, it won't go any further up. So that's where we want our hard limit to never go beyond that point. So again, we got a bracket over here. We're going to put the level across the top. Glad I'm not doing this much later because it's getting difficult to see. But here, now I don't like to put a line on the outside there because you'll see it. Use caution too when putting the shades against a ladder like I'm doing right here. It's not the Not the safest practice. If you're wobbly on your ladder at all, you could end up kicking the shade over.
He's not wobbly.
What?
I said you're not wobbly.
I am rather sure-footed for a large fella on a ladder. It's okay. Number 3. Gonna reset it, make sure that it doesn't go up too high. Clicks right in. Now doing this method rather than measuring it, you'll notice I get 0 slop on these. They're not too wide, they're not too narrow. I don't have to set the brackets 3 times. I'm not trying to sit there and remeasure out everything in my head. I found it's the fastest way by far to just set them up this way and make the marks. As long as the guy that measured it knew what he was doing, they should all theoretically line up.
He
This one
measured
should
it.
come right down over the edge here, overlaps the edge here, no obstructions down below. We're looking here, we've got 1.125" is our gap, which is perfect. If you set your brackets, if this bracket gets set too wide, what'll happen is you'll pull this over and it'll increase this spacing here. So if you're going 1.125", sometimes it's 1.25", but it shouldn't be 1.5" or something like that. Then you got loose brackets, your brackets are set up too wide, the shade could potentially fall out or skip on the upper limit. So, what you're looking for is a consistent gap all the way down. So we're 1.125" down here. We're 1.125". Yeah, we're perfect so far. I don't want to curse it or jinx it. So now this is working from the right to the left because we're going to set that last bracket. So I'll show you what I mean by it's easier to work from left to right. Okay, so we're going to take this little guy out. Do this so it's tight. So what can happen when you're setting this from right to left is you have, when you're working on the right side, you can slip your bracket on here and it doesn't move. When you're working from the right to the left, this side right here will fall right out. So another thing that can happen on larger shades is you go to set it. Dummy.
I don't think he put the other bracket up yet.
Getting ahead of myself again. So when you're working right to left, helps when you put your right bracket in. So right side bracket, line it up to bottom. If you put it on a wonky wall, this house is built nice. It has flat walls, it's good. Sometimes they're not. When you put it in, the bracket will shift over like that. That's not good. So what you end up having to do is use and any installer worth his weight has a little shim material. So if this thing is, let's say the bracket is sitting over like this, you need to put a little shim behind one side of it to get the bracket to push tight against this one. You don't want your brackets looking like that. That means you're a goofball, you don't know what you're doing. So you want your brackets tight. So whatever it takes to make them tight. If you look at the surface and think about it for a little bit, you'll go, okay, I got to put something under there to push the bracket back to tighten that up. So whatever you're doing, make sure that's tight. Or you won't be cool. And you won't be allowed in the Cool Kids Installer Club. You'll be hacky McHackenstein. And there are already plenty of those. So be original and make it look nice. You always want to put a screw in your mouth too, just because that way if there's any viruses passed around, you get a very small dosage of it and it keeps your immunity system strong for a lifetime. Now if I die in the next year or so of COVID or something like that, please disregard what I just said and don't put anything in your mouth. Okay, so we're going to take this little guy here. Here's the part that'll really give you struggles when the shades are big, wide. These are all narrow shades, so we're fine here. But when you slide this in, and I'll show you how much it sucks when you're by yourself, so hopefully it doesn't happen. When you push it in here, if you push it in too far, can't really see it from that side. So if you go over on the other side where you just were.
I thought you were going to the other side.
Yes. Completely unscripted, by the way. Completely unscripted. Mm-hmm. So if you push this one in a little bit, you can slide it back out. If you push it in and you go, oh, now it's stuck. So when you're on a big wide shade and you can't reach over to this side and you go, oh man, you got to then try to figure out how you're going to do this. If you're by yourself, you're trying to figure out where to drop the shade, what to do. To release it, you actually have to go over here and there's a little lever on the top. They didn't make this very easy because you have to push it in. So you actually have to get on top of it here, push this down, push the shade back, and then it, right now wondering why I wanted to show you this. So push the lever down, the shade goes back a little bit, and then it releases. Now when you're doing that and the shade is 8 feet wide, it's not fun. So when you put this in, slide it in a little bit like that, leave it loose. Don't push it back to where it clicks in place. So this one right here, we're gonna go in. Now, I'm not setting the upper limit right now because I'm just locating the bracket, getting it level. So that's level. Make my mark. If you have a corner to rest your shades in, it prevents them from sliding side to side. It's just a little quicker than climbing down the ladder and setting the shade down and all that if you're doing it by yourself. If you have a helper, it's much faster. One other trick I learned a long time ago was to be ambidextrous. So if you can only work with your right hand, well, that's kind of a bummer because sometimes you want to work with your left. So go. Now these brackets are slotted, so if you're not careful, it'll move over a little bit. that's where you also want random pieces of wood. They work wonderful for knocking things around. Also, if you're spacing things, let's say you want to move it up a little bit off of the wall, this is 3/4 of an inch. So you can set that there, put the bracket on top, you know, you've got 3/4 of an inch spacing across here. That's for future videos. So, again, see if I can do this a little better with my left hand this time. So you're pretty much only super cool if you can install with both hands. I mean, not bad if you only can do the right hand, but. Okay, so always look for these guys. Where'd you go?
Right.
Look for these guys. These little pads, there's shipping pads. Sometimes if you have a cassette over the top of this whole thing, watch out for these little ugly labels. Not quite sure what they are there for, but they don't need to stay. 1, 2, 3, turn to blue. Now this time jogs up, it hits the upper limit. Again, if that upper limit is not established, this will flip completely over and not be fun. So press it again. And down she goes. If you're noticing a difference in the fabrics, well, there is one. So, unfortunately, we got 3 black shades and 1 brown shade. So, we'll be coming back up again to do 3 brown shades. Unless the customer wants black shades, then we'll do 1 black shade.
There was an error in shipping.
It happens. Okay, so that's good for part 1 on how to hang a multiple panel door, motorized. This doesn't have any cassette on it or anything. They're just reverse roll screen shades, 3% screen shades.
Yay!